kids had a fall break, so I got to spend some time with them, so it was good.
How's the shoulder feeling coming off the bye game ready for this week?
Feels good. It was definitely good to have a whole week and get some rest and feel like I was making progress with it, which I did. So.
How sore was it after the game?
It was sore, but I don't know. It wasn't to the point where it was creating an issue. I went home and slept well and was able to do all those things. So ultimately, it was pretty good.
What clicked so well the first time y'all played Pittsburgh?
Listen, I think I think we've been moving the ball pretty well the last few weeks. I think we were going to that game just with a little bit of built-up confidence from the week before, and I just think when your offensive line's playing well, when you got guys that are winning, at the line of scrimmage, and then your run game can kind of, really find its groove. It can be tough. It's just sets up well for playing good offense, and I think that's what we were able to do against these guys the first time, was just kind of get to the point where we were running the ball well and winning quick enough to not let their strength really get to you.
They put Ramsey, I guess, at safety.
Mm-hmm.
Personnel shift for them. How are they different for those two guys at safety? Ramsey?
Well, I think you can't really find out until until you go out there and you see what they're going to do against us, and you kind of get a feel for the game. But we all know what kind of player he is and how he can affect the game, and I think it's a way for them to get the guys that they feel best about on the field and in positions to impact the game in a meaningful way. And he's big, he's physical, he can run. He's I would, not that I've been around him, but I would assume he's very instinctive and is able to kind of sit back and see what's going on and figure it out a little bit. So that's what I would think.
What's the dynamic like? If it's any different than it is in the locker room with Joe on the field? Do you have different conversations than he was in the locker room? Do you see different things? What is it like now that he has returned to practice?
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe it wasn't like I was able to do a ton today and like kind of bounce things off of him and things like that. But I'm sure when you have, now that he's actually on the field and we're actually doing some more, I'm sure naturally more conversations would come up about game plan type stuff. But ultimately, I feel like it's probably gonna be pretty similar to how it's been.
What's he been like in the meeting room since you've been here?
Great, yeah. I mean, he's kind of been in there in the morning with us, and you can tell that he's been mainly focused on attacking his rehab and making sure that he can get back on the field when he wants to. But he's been great to have in the room just because he's been operating in this offense and actually been out there doing it for however many years now. So it's always nice to be able to see how he may, how the operation of how he may do things, how he signals guys, or how he, informs them of whatever it may be in the huddle, just some of those types of things.
Whether it is in the meeting room or on the practice field, what is the collaboration like between the two of you?
Listen, I think you can probably make too much about that, honestly. I mean, listen, we're just two quarterbacks sitting in a room, and it's probably not. It's not like we're doing anything groundbreaking in there. We're two quarterbacks in a room, just like any other two quarterbacks in a room for the most part. I think, like I said, for me, still being new in the offense, and it's not just him, it's also Jake, but just being able to see, I'm still at the point where you're able to kind of see the operation of things and kind of bounce little questions like that off of those guys. I think that's still the biggest thing. And maybe with Joe, he has a way of doing it that's a little bit different than Jake, and then I have a little bit of a different way. But if I can kind of understand where they're coming from, then it makes it a little bit easier for me.
Has it been weird or awkward at all seeing the buzz created by him coming back, knowing what that ultimately means for you?
No, not at all. I mean, I think, I have a job to do, and I'm focused on doing that job. And if that comes to an end at some point, I just want to feel good about the job that I'm doing when I'm asked to do that job. So, no, not at all.
what is your process or goal, like today when you're not gonna throw, what do you try to get accomplished at practice when you, I mean, we assume you're gonna start Sunday, but when you're not practicing on a day like this?
Yeah, I mean, I've never done it much besides the last 2 weeks. But ultimately, just get the feet moving a little bit so you're not just standing around all day, and then listening to the calls and getting the walkthrough reps so that the operation is as smooth as possible. I think that's an underrated thing, and when you get reps, you don't really think about it, but getting those reps and going through it is important. So just hearing it in my helmet and making sure that I'm paying attention as much as possible and going through the process when Jake's out there taking those reps is important.
You played with a lot of really good offensive linemen. What stands out to you most about Amarius through the couple games that you got to play with him?
It's tough for me to probably like sit back here and detail one guy, especially when I've been so focused on other things. But I will say, like, the whole group takes a lot of pride in what they're doing, and you can just tell it means something to them. And I think when you have guys like that or a guy like that, then it just sets your whole room up for success. And those guys, more than any other position, they are a unit. They work as one. So I think, like I said, having pride, like the guys that are the best at what they do have just that next level of kind of commitment to what they do, and you can see it translate into success on the field.
When you got traded here, was there a talk of how long you theoretically would be the starter for? Obviously, we knew that Joe was on IR. Were there any conversations of, hey, we expect you to play this many games? Like, what was that conversation?
No, not really. I think that was the last thing that was on my mind. I was just like, all right, I'm playing this week, let's go, and then just going from there.
What do you think these next couple of weeks will be like? Obviously, Joe's got a target date of what it's going to be like, so that means there's probably a finite date of when you'll be the starter. How do you kind of process that, knowing, because it's probably pretty rare for a quarterback to know that there's a time, like a generally a specific time where you won't be the starter anymore?
I don't know. I think backups probably do it a good amount where they know, like, hey, this guy's coming back. He's got a 3-week injury or whatever it is. I'm honestly not really thinking about it. It's not really a part of my process. I really don't care. I mean, it's this week, and that's all that matters. And I think to think about that stuff would just be a distraction. So it's not really something I'm worried about. Like I said, I'm just worried about doing my job, and this week that's going out and playing against Pittsburgh. So
There's no one alive that's played Tom more. Is there any one thing about what he does? Is there anything that you have to be aware of, or that's coming, or here he is? I mean, is there any kind of calling card?
well, yeah. I mean, listen, this game always comes down to physicality and being able to put your guys in positions to play physical and play fast. And even though we only played him a couple weeks ago, you can't fall for, listen, this is my 18th year. I mean, what is this year for him? 20, 21, something like that. Yeah. He's been in this league and on that team for a really long time because he knows how to put those guys in positions to make plays. So even though we only played them a couple weeks ago, you know that they're going to have a plan and be able to come out and execute it at a high level. So I think anytime you have a head coach that's been around as long as he has, it's the ability to get the most out of your guys, and they've consistently done that through playing fast, putting pressure on the quarterback, stopping the run, being physical, and I think he's found ways to do that no matter what.
You've been in the league 18 years, like you said, and obviously been with a lot of different offenses. What makes this one unique?
It's pretty easy answer, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think just look at the two guys that are on the outside. I think anytime you have guys like that, it forces the defense to do something that maybe they normally wouldn't do. And if they do their normal stuff, can they really stand in there and compete and do that? And even in the run game, you can feel Jamar and T's presence because of how much you can spread teams out because they have to worry about them and spend so much time focusing on them that you get a little bit extra room in there. So if I was to pick one thing that's unique about this offense, I mean, there's probably other things too, but if I was to pick one thing, I mean, it's the level of play that those guys bring every Sunday.
I know it's kind of a small sample size for you. You've only been here a few weeks, but do you feel defenses getting out of what they normally are comfortable doing against this offense?
Well, I don't think like on a week in and week out basis, teams are used to coming in and having to double two guys, even one guy. Good defenses are good because they get good at something, and guys can play super fast without hesitation, downhill. And, you know, offense is the same way. Like when you can get a defense on their heels because you get so good at doing a few things, and you can do those few things really well. So when you feel like that's not necessarily holding up because of the skill level at a certain position, and you have to, you know, I'm seeing some of these coverages. I've seen some coverages the last couple weeks that I probably haven't seen in 18 years because you have two guys, and I'm not saying they're like these new coverages, but I mean, I don't remember having to go into a game and say, hey, when they double T and double Jamar, this is our answer. It's just a little bit different.
Kind of along those lines, you hit Chase Brown a lot in the passing game. How is there a chemistry that's harder to develop with a running back in the passing game than with, you know, receivers where you can chuck and throw the ball where there's a little bit more nuance to that, or has it been easy to pick up chemistry with him?
It's always funny when you get these chemistry questions because I do think there's like chemistry that's built over time with guys, and you really learn how to read them, and they get better at doing what they do. But in my experience, it also just comes down to like those guys being really good at what they do, and it's pretty easy to have chemistry with guys that get open quick, and just have a natural feel for where the space on the field is. So. Yeah, you can always build, and the more time you spend with guys, get better and better and better. But for it to happen so quickly, it's just a credit to the guy that's running the route more so than it is the guy that's throwing to him. I think you have to give those guys that are running those routes a lot of credit. It's up to them to get open. And if guys get open, then you should be able to hit them. So
There's a lot of talk about them when they traded for you, for the offense it needs to be better. Since you got here, y'all were the number one offense in the league. What's it like kind of seeing that transformation and kind of having the impact that was intended as you kind of reflect on that?
Well, I think your goal every week is to go out there and play well and put your team, you know, kind of give your team a chance to win. So I think for the most part, it feels good about going out there and putting points on the board. But then there's also times where you're going to look at it and be critical and, you know, look at yourself and on our side of the ball and what more could we have done. So. Listen, I've had a lot of fun the last few weeks just going out there and playing football and being able to play with these guys and allowing them, you know, them allowing me into this locker room and to be a part of the team. It's been a lot of fun. But, you know, at the same time, we want to win football games. So it's just finding ways to get that a little bit better and kind of carry us over the edge.
You said you've had a lot of fun and you've played really well here. Has this time in Cincinnati impacted your desire to play football longer?
I don't think I give it too much thought as to how long I'm going to play. It's what I've always done. I just kind of view myself as playing. That's what I think anytime you're playing the game, let's put it this way. I think when you aren't on the field, there's times where it's hard. It's harder to stay in the moment, and there's times where it can creep into your head. Like, man, what am I doing? Like, this isn't that fun. This isn't that much fun. I'm not even playing, you know? And you have to find ways to battle through that because you love the game and it means something to me. It still means something to me when I'm not playing, but it is harder to get in that, like, frame of mind where, you know, like, you're just loving it. And then, so I don't think there's like an extra reminder when you are playing, but you just get back in that mode of playing football, and it's what you love to do. So of course you're having fun doing it. So I'm not necessarily thinking about like has it re-energized me to want to play longer, but it gives you that feeling that like I belong here. This is what I want to do. This is what I belong doing. And yeah, that's why it is different when you're out there. But like I said, I think overall I try not to think about, I guess, how long I'm going to play. It's just what you do, and you're definitely better off mentally when you're out there.
When you were on that point, when you were in Cleveland, and they went a different direction at quarterback, did you think this might be the last year I do this because you weren't playing? Did that cross your mind at all at that point?
Yeah, of course. Like I said, it's hard to not distract. It's hard to distract yourself from those thoughts. I think you're always getting like bombarded with these negative thoughts. No matter what that negative thought is, and it's how do you kind of get out of that mode and get into the positive. And yeah, like never playing football again is one of those thoughts. It's definitely came across my mind several different times in my career, whether it was like fear of like, man, am I ever gonna play again? Or myself saying like, what the hell am I doing? Like, am I even having fun? Like those thoughts have all come into my mind, and I've dealt with them all at some point or at one point or another. So I think I know enough now to just kind of go play and try not, and when those things do come in to your head, like don't let them affect you in a negative way. It's probably a pretty natural thought for those things to come into your head a little bit. Just kind of deal with them, get rid of them, and then go play and do all that. And when you're not playing, it's harder to do, yes, but at the same time, it's like you're still a part of a team and you still have a task, and you can kind of you find comfort in whatever that task is. And when you're playing, it's a lot easier, like I keep saying. But when you're not playing, you can find something else to do to make yourself feel important and kind of, drive you to want to be doing whatever that is the best you can.
I can probably look it up, but if you had to guess, which Steeler do you think has the most sacks on you in your career?
I know James Harrison. I have no idea. I mean, I'm just thinking like James Harrison, Brett Kiesel, Lamar, Woodley, Palomalu maybe even. I don't know. I wouldn't guess TJ. Because what was his rookie year?
17.
Yeah, I mean, I played in 18, and I haven't really played him since then. So, but it's possible.
That 08 title game in Pittsburgh, Lily said it was the most physical team he's ever been involved with. What do you remember about that game?
I remember throwing a game-sealing pick to Troy Polamalu and then having to try to tackle him on the way back. And no, I was on the ground looking at him score a touchdown as the stadium was going crazy. That's what I remember about that. It was the third time we played him that year, and we didn't beat him. But man, I mean, that was my 19th game, my rookie season. It was incredible. But yeah, those games were always crazy physical, and they had so many good guys, and we had so many good guys. They were cool games to be a part of.
Did you ever cross paths with Ben when you were playing at Pitt? When you were at Pitt, did you ever?
Maybe, but not like really. I mean, listen, we shared the facility there, but like you didn't really cross paths with those guys too much, and it wasn't like I was like the guy there. So no. It's funny. Like as much as we've played each other, I mean, we know each other well enough to kind of smile when we see each other and say hi and talk a little ball or whatever. But it's not like we know each other that well.
When you first arrived here, there were all the questions about learning the playbook and being able to play on almost no practice. And now it's questions about, the uncertainty of how long you'll be playing as a starter. What makes you more well-equipped to handle that craziness now than you would have been like 17 or 18 years ago?
Well, I think your perspective just changes. You mature a little bit. I've been through many situations where I'm not happy with what my situation is, but you learn how to fight through that, and you learn how to like just not give attention to things that you don't need to spend energy on. And there's certain feelings that you're always going to have when things like that come up, and you have to be aware. I think I'm aware of that, and it's just like, they're not doing you any good at the end of the day. I will say, like, I think I've always probably been able to step back and see it from a positive point of view at some point. Like, just because of what's going on now doesn't mean that's what's going to be happening in 3, 6 months, a year from now. You got to be positive about what the future holds. But like I said, I think my job since I've been here is to take pride in what I'm doing and do that for as long as possible. And I think no matter how long I play, if I continue to keep my head down and just look at that for what it is, just go out there, keep your head down, work hard, play football, have pride in what you're doing, show up for your guys. Like, why do I care how long I get to do that for? Like, I'm doing what I've been asked to come in here and do, and that's all I can do. And however long that is, I want to do that as best as I can. And if I'm able to do that, keep my head down and do what I do the best I can, then I'll be able to look at myself and be proud of it and not worry about whatever else there is. So.
Seems like forever the Pittsburgh Steelers have had a dominant defensive football team. All football fans know that. They've had different position coaches. They've had different coordinators. What makes the Pittsburgh Steelers good every year?
Yeah, well, listen, Mike's been there the whole time.
Right.
Like, building a culture is a real thing. Like, setting expectations. When you come in there as a young guy, I'm sure you see guys working, and it definitely you develop that sense of work ethic. You see it. You start to do it. It's one of those hard things to like really define and decide how you're going to create it. But a culture is a real thing, and for one guy to be there for 20 years and have carried over a culture from Bill Cowher, who was already there, and who I don't even know before that, but Chuck was there, and they've had a few. When Cowher retired, I think when he was like 13 or 14 years tenured in Pittsburgh or whatever, he was the longest tenured coach at the time. So they haven't had very many coaches. They've been able to just establish a culture and what it means to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, and they've found the guys they've found good enough players to kind of carry that through the last 50 years. So I think that's, and I think it's what I think it's the basics. It's what we all think of when we think of good football teams. It still comes down to being physical, playing fast, and having guys that care about the game. So
Joe was direct when we asked him how meaningful it would be to make his return at Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
He said very. For you, how meaningful it would be to go back there and play.
Listen, you can get so emotional about these things, but at the end of the day, I've played this game so much versus so many different opponents. I went back there this year already. I love playing there just because I love playing there. It's an awesome place to play, and the fans are great. But I really, at this point, I'm not too emotional about it. Like I said, I've played a million opponents, and there's a bunch of different guys wearing those jerseys now. So it's like, it's just like any other NFL team. It turns over so often, and you can't get caught up in all that stuff. You just go play the game, and you play it to win.
For you, what's the biggest difference going into your fifth game with this team versus a month ago when you were going into your first game?
Well, I feel like I'm a part of the team. I think that's a big thing, like developing relationships with the guys and, proving to them that you belong and that you can play. And, it means more when you can look guys in the eye and know that you went to battle with each other. And I think that's the biggest difference, is just feeling like I'm a part of all that.
You were right, it's James Harrison.
There you go.
I guess there was a game he had 3 sacks on.
There you go. There you go.
Good call on one, too.